I just lost a few people. As soon as we get them gathered.
He's talking to Mr. Lemack.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, she sent me back there.
Okay, I'll call the meeting to order.
Lisa's not sure.
Everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I guess it would help if I put my mic on. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Paul,
Yes, here.
Vice Mayor Hatton,
Here.
Councilmember Kalicka,
Here.
Councilmember Starkey,
Here.
Councilmember Lewis, Mr. Lemack,
Here.
Mr. Lewis, Mr. Holste, Mr. Raisin,
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Before we start the meeting, I'd just like to take a moment of silence. We lost a very good friend in Kathy Durham. Been very active in the town. She had was a member of a number of organizations, and she was just buried this weekend. And we'd also like to add to in our prayers Miccosukee Officer Stephen Greco, who died last week in a very horrific crash. He was a Davie resident, so our hearts go out to his family as well. We're having a moment of silence, folks. Thank you. Whoever's chattering in the back.
Just tell him, go ahead. Just tell him, go. He doesn't hear.
Oh. Now you may come in. Thank you. Come on, come up front.
Look at these gorgeous ladies. That little one in front of you today was so, she thought you were so
Please.
She was so cute.
You can hear it. We edit, we cut and paste.
Okay, we're going to have a presentation, and as you can tell from our attire, we're all getting ready for Orange Blossom, and we're very excited.
Somebody's phone? Somebody's phone? Cell phone?
It's over here.
It might have been mine.
Oh,
I don't know.
troublemaker.
All the time. I try so hard. And I succeed most of the time.
So, we're going to have a presentation today of our queens, our Orange Blossom queens, who will be in the Orange Blossom Parade on Saturday, and who will reign this year and be at the rodeos and a lot of different events. So, Jeff, are you going to introduce Lisa? And
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Town Council, Administration, and members of the public. I'll introduce Lisa here in a minute, but I think she wants me to do some of the speaking before she comes up and talks. Excuse me, but I'd like to begin by thanking our 2008 Orange Blossom Queens, who did an excellent job representing the town over the last year at many community events, parades, festivals, as well as the rodeos. The 2019 Orange Blossom pageant was held on Saturday, January 26th. I'd also like to thank our judges, Ms. Noshelle Hastings, Nikki Hanna, and David Roth, as well as our performers throughout the event, Mr. Steve Higgins, Brianna Braun, and the South Florida Cloggers. I'd also like to thank a special thanks to Lisa Alvarez, who's been instrumental in reviving the Orange Blossom pageant over the last several years, as well as our Parks and Recreation and Cultural Arts Department, and Rebecca Vetter, who's been our MC the last several years as well. So with that, we had over 40 girls participating this year. It was actually 10 more than last year, so every year it continues to grow. So we're looking forward to having more Davy girls participate every year in 7 age categories. This year we also added the Mrs. category as well. As you know, each queen will represent the town of Davie throughout the year at special events, rodeos, and other festivals and community events. The queens will also be featured in the 82nd Annual Orange Blossom Festival Parade and Rodeo this weekend. So with that, I want to turn it over to Lisa Alvarez to say a couple words before we introduce our court.
Hello, Mayor and Council, women and men.
Move the mic.
Okay, I'm a little taller. I just want to say thank you again, Mayor Judy Paul, for always giving me this opportunity the last 3 years to run this pageant and make it as successful as it is. I'm having a great time. The girls are. It's nice to see some of them come back year after year and win that didn't win before. So it's an exciting time, and I'm looking forward to it. So I just want to say thank you and look forward to a great year, 2019. And I'll turn it back over to Jeff, and I'll get the girls ready.
Thank you. All right, so without further ado, I'd like to congratulate our 2019 Orange Blossom Royal Court. In our Tiny Miss category, ages 2 to 4, our princess is Alicia Mohit, and our queen is Anaya Mohit. A little sisterly rivalry going on. Yes.
She still thinks she's in the pageant.
Yes, she's still ready to compete. Yes.
Absolutely.
In our Little Miss category, ages 5 to 7, our princess is Diana Lewis, with our queen Layla Korn. And we have other princes as well, but just for time's sake, I'm just going to introduce the ones that are here. For our Junior Miss, ages 8 to 10 years old, our queen is Gianna Palmiedo. Our Miss Junior Teen, ages 11 to 13, our princesses are, Madison McCochran and Angelina Anton. And our queen is Ariel Deary. And our Miss Teen, ages 14 to 16, our princesses are Heidi Linares and Hannah Combs. And our queen is Alyssa Puppich. In our Miss category, ages 17 to 24, our princess is Taylor Jones, and our queen is Julia Cherisani.
Close enough.
Did I get it right? All right. In our Mrs. category, ages 18 and older, our princesses are Wendy Fountain and Diane Alexander. And our queen is Ashley Naya. And with that, I present to you our 2019 Orange Blossom Royal Court.
I'm going to take pictures. Make sure you can be
Stick your
seen.
head in between.
In between
What
what?
I mean, in between the other princesses' heads, please.
Don't you say
No, they can't be.
Just keep.
Shush. Get on my tippy toe. Such a ham. What a guy.
Oh my God, does she have her hand on her hip again? Dear baby.
Outside, she was doing this,
I know, right? Look up, Carol.
fixing her feet.
All right, let's all put our hands on our hip.
We did that outside. They did it.
Great. Congratulations. We'll see you all this weekend.
And I couldn't leave without just reminding everybody of the 82nd Annual Orange Blossom Festival Parade and Rodeo this weekend, beginning Friday at 1 p.m. with the James B. Pirtle Memorial Golf Classic, the Orange Blossom Kickoff Concert at 6 p.m., and then all the weekend festivities on Saturday and Sunday beginning at 9 a.m. each day. Thank you.
Yeah. Kiwanis Pancakes at the AEF School from 8 to 11. Strawberry Festival at the Women's Club. Oh, my gosh.
They came today, they're gorgeous. Oh my God, the strawberries are wonderful.
They always are.
Yeah, they're
Huh?
really good. We got them at Plains.
What'd you say, Susan?
Said if they can't find something to do this weekend.
Yeah.
True.
Okay, item 2 under presentations, Broward County's proposed purchase of the Florida Aquatics Nursery property located on South Flamingo Road. Phil, do you want to introduce our guest?
Good evening, Mayor. And tonight we have in attendance the Assistant County Administrator, Alfonso Jefferson. He's going to give a brief presentation on the proposed purchase by the county of the Florida Aquatics Nursery property. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, good evening, Mayor, council members. It's a pleasure. This is my first time being in the town of Davie, even in the council meeting or even in a meeting. Normally, we're at some other meeting, Mr. Lamack or downtown, so it's a privilege to be here tonight.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a whole new world out here, right?
It definitely is, but I appreciate all of Broward County and what Broward County offers to all our residents. So this is just wonderful to be out here. I was about to say, it's kind of hard to come up after what you just saw here, I wish we had opportunities in the county to do things of that nature. So it's always the city who does those things that, really touch those residents they can see all the time. So my goal today is really to talk about the Florida Nursery property itself and our anticipated purchase of that particular property. Right now, this is just information. We're still in our due diligence period. Your staff has been wonderful. They have definitely provided us a lot of feedback, a lot of information for us to take back to consider as well. Since the first time I made that call to Mr. Lamack, he has been very open and transparent and gave me information so that we can go through our due diligence period before making a final decision on the purchase of this particular property. So what you have before you is just a brief overview of where we are. We did execute a contract in December. Our termination deadline for that contract is March 5th. We're in our due diligence period at this particular point in time. Title is still under review. Survey has been completed. We did our phase 1 and our phase 2 environmental. We were okay with those, but there were some issues that were found out there that we had to expand our phase 2 environmental. So we're still waiting on those particular results to come back. We checked out the wetlands investigation. None were found. Our expected closing day is April 4th, but the key date for us is March 5th, where we make a decision, or the board makes a decision if we move forward with the purchase or not. You're pretty familiar with the property itself, so there's a diagram on here. As I came in, dropping my son off from travel basketball, I rode right by the property again myself, right off of Flamingo Road. Our initial proposed use of the particular facility or the site was for the supervisor of elections. We are desperately looking for a site for this particular facility. Today, our supervisor of elections office is really split into 2 areas, and it's time for us to have a new facility. So we've been looking quite some time. I've been in Broward County for 6 years, almost 7 years now, and we've been looking ever since that time. So it was many years before me that we've been looking for a facility. So we're trying to find that location. The site does require some remediation, which we understand. As I mentioned, we're going through our due diligence, and one thing that we're really looking at is the test fits on the particular site, meaning there has been an expanded need for additional warehouse space, larger than what they currently have right now. So we need to make sure that it can fit on that particular property. So we're doing a lot of test fits right now. Based on requirements that we received from your staff, it helps us to better understand, can we really fit on this property. We're not sure right now. It's a bit maybe, but within the next couple of days or a week, we will know if that location can or the facility can fit on that particular site. Some alternate uses that we've been considering and thinking about if the site does not turn out the way that we would like it to be. Some transit-oriented development that includes mixed use, some commercial, some housing, some many different things that could be placed on that site. As you know, it's right by the Young at Art. We believe that there has some synergy to what we are trying to place there, but we're still in our due diligence phase. We're still reviewing this. We should have a lot of the stuff that we need prior to the March 5th timeframe to make a determination if we need to move forward or not with this particular property. So that's the information I have for you this evening, and I answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, I just want to say a few words. If you look at, there's Phil gave us a copy of an email where they identify some things that they're going to need to look into. But we've struggled to find an appropriate application for this parcel due to the access issues. The proposed FDOT Park and Ride parcel, the Young at Art, the adjacent residential community. I've been concerned with the traffic impacts and incompatible uses that affect the peaceful enjoyment of the neighbors. I'm encouraged to some degree that this will be a fairly passive use, as night and weekend activity will not occur at all, or at the very least, it will be minimal, case of course on Election Day. The property is already not producing taxes. It's a agricultural specification to any degree, so there'll be no significant impact as far as the taxes. My biggest concern is the adjacent neighborhood, the Vaquero Trails. I'd like to ask that before your due diligence period ends, that you hold an exploratory meeting with the residents adjacent to the property, as their input will be heavily weighed by me, and I'm sure those individuals on the council. This will require a land use and a zoning change, and though the neighbors would be notified through the required notification process, I think it would be disingenuous to let them know the property was already purchased before they had an opportunity, to provide input. This is especially important as government also must protect the people. I would like to hear from my colleagues that if the residents are supportive, do they see any other major issues that should be brought out tonight, since this project would require a supermajority vote, even though we are not voting on it tonight. But in the future, if it ever comes forward, it would require a supermajority. If not, and the neighbors are supportive, I'd be willing to consider looking at it. I would be interested in seeing a little more about what that mixed use entails, as whether or not I think that might be a better option than the other. I don't know, and it depends on what your findings are. So we have to look at retention location, fencing, building height, building footprint, and the signage, just to name a few, and plus the things that Mr. Holste brought to your attention. So I know I have spoken on many occasions to many developers who have come to me with ideas for that parcel, and I basically turned them all down because that I felt that those projects did not fit in, because we have the scenic corridor on Flamingo Road. That's also a consideration, and I would not entertain any variance to eliminate the scenic corridor. That's very important to that to Flamingo Road. So with that said, if anybody on the council would like to speak, I'll start with Brian and I'll work down.
When I became aware of this project, I was asked, what do you think about it? It was pitched by our staff, and And I haven't done my due diligence because I think it's premature to do so before we know if you're even going to buy it. I appreciate the county coming here and for your presentation, but we, much like the county commission, we have single-member districts, and I'm on the other side. This is my area, and so when I look at things, I listen very carefully to that council member, which is Councilmember Starkey over there. It weighs heavily on me, and it does require a supermajority vote.
Paul?
I'm not going to say a whole lot that this isn't exactly what I had in my mind when I think of having something there. But I would appreciate if you would meet with the residents before you do close on the property, if you do, and get their input. And I certainly am worried about having. You have here on the second page here this with the traffic and that park and go. We already have one. I don't know how that will work here in Davie, especially because the people from out there can't get on that express lane.
Right.
So I mean, and I ride 595 every morning and afternoon to work, and the express lane does nothing for anyone in District 4 and Davie, period. But we'll see where this goes. We'll see where this goes.
Carol?
I'm with Councilmember Coletta. I defer to Councilmember Starkey, but I'm with Councilmember Lewis about, let's see where it goes. I mean, I think it's open to discussion, and it's very new yet.
Yes.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Alfonso, and
How you
thank you
doing?
for coming to present to us. When I first heard about it, I was not real keen on the idea, knowing that many of the other battles that we've had in the past on our State Road 84 or Flamingo Road due to the scenic corridor and others, that I didn't think it would be well received by our residents. The village of Lake Pines having additional traffic along State Road 84, or as well as a lot of the other traffic concerns that they would have even across the street or next door, immediate. My immediate concern is the people who do live and surround that area, and I didn't think it was a compatible land use to be putting into something like that. Although I always look to cooperate with the county as much as possible because of the partnerships we all have enjoyed over the past, and we try to do our best. I don't want you to waste your time. March is fast approaching, March 5th to be exact, and I could tell you that I am keenly aware of my community, and I'm concerned about the, not just the compatibility of the residents, but the traffic that it also has. We also have a big issue with the ingress and egress of that site, and, Brian would probably know better than I, but the FDOT doesn't really allow a lot of things to happen so close to an intersection or a highway such as that. And I don't think that would work out with the Florida Department of Transportation unless you also had a lot of hoops to go through. So I'm going to tell you I'm not supporting it. I couldn't support it at this time. Even like we said earlier about the park and ride, the access would be very difficult for our residents as there's no entrance onto the express lanes. They'd have to probably, I think it's 2 intersections before they could finally get up to the
Get on 595.
get up into the 595. So I did that today, as a matter of fact. It took a while. We had to go through one intersection and past hiatus and then up.
One way.
So I'm concerned about it, and I wouldn't want to be disingenuous and say, well, wait and see what the residents say. I think it'd be a waste of time. I've served for 17 years, and I think I know a lot of them pretty well, unless they're new. And mostly we have fought a lot of fights with them and for them, and I don't want to put them through this again. So I can't support it at this time, so I'm sorry.
No, I totally understand. This is fairly new, and we're still working through the particular process. We're open to meeting with residents. Trust me, me being involved in 911 and all those, I've been in many community meetings to address residents' concern. It's the wish of this council. I would definitely work with your staff and see how quickly something can be put together, since March 5th is definitely right around the corner from that particular standpoint.
Can you get an extension on that?
Unfortunately, I checked in that today, and unfortunately, no.
Because I think it might be a good idea if the residents are opposed and they're adamant about it. It's good for him to hear that.
Right, I agree.
So I will work very hard with your staff to see how quickly something can be put together to address that particular component. The things in the email, I really don't see are insurmountable. I think there's information that we need to better understand if whatever's there from a development standpoint to meet your particular needs. I think
But you realize, as we are very pro-resident.
Absolutely.
And if the residents come out en masse and say they don't want it, you might not get your vote, so.
Yeah.
What?
I said if two come out and say they don't want it, we'll always say no.
I think from a standpoint of it, when you look at one particular item, say the supervisor of election, but there could be something else. And we realize that we have to go through that process to determine what could be there. I could get a call tomorrow from our construction division and say, you know what, Alfonso, the test fits turns out we just can't put the site there. But we still may want to move forward in purchasing a particular property for something else. And that's something that we would have to develop and work with your staff on.
And I would expect you would come back and do a similar presentation.
Absolutely. Right now, this is just in initial stages for us to understand what can we do there and just have that open dialogue at this particular point. So nothing's set in stone until we know definitely. And like I said, I could know this week that I can't build a supervisor of election facility on that site.
That would be the best answer. Yes.
I would encourage you to work with our staff on possibly looking at another site that might be available in the town that, could possibly be a better fit then, because I am also reluctant to take off any more taxable income in the future that we have proposed that be, for a taxable benefit, not just agriculture, but as it got farther to develop. And if the county should buy it, then there won't be taxes as a tax base for that anymore anyway. So I'm really not encouraged for that either. It would be the same answer I'd have for possibly a school board or any other government agency that tried to purchase the site. That would be my same concern. So it's not
Absolutely.
the county, it's the parcel itself.
Well, thank you.
You got some hurdles.
Understandable.
Mayor, can I just clarify something? Regardless of the county's direction, we have had several projects that on that site. We've never talked to the residents. I don't know what they'll support. They've never had this opportunity to communicate with anyone. I don't know if what we've left the county's direction with, are they doing something or not? Because at the end of the day, they're going to have to end up going back to the
to us
community anyway. So the question would be is,
Exactly.
if we wanted to let them do an exploratory without any commitment from you anyway, you still have the right to hear competent and substantial evidence and make a decision. But quite frankly, with all the projects on that site being considered, maybe it's a good time for us to learn anyway, in case this goes away, of what they'll support and won't support in the future to help you make a more informed decision in the future. But you're not obligated by any exploratory decisions that are made. We could just use the information for our own advantage going forward, whether the county proceeds or not. Just something to consider.
My only concern is that you may speak to one or two that may not object, but then maybe 10 did not show up. And then my concern then, too, would be, you still have to come before us as council, and you've already then committed potentially to the March 5th deadline.
Well, let me assure.
I don't want to cost the county money that way either,
Well, we realized the decision that we were making on this property. So as we looked at the property, we decided that it may be worth the risk to purchase the property for something in the future. But regardless of that, there may be an opportunity where you say to me, Alfonso, we want you to hold 2 community meetings. We don't object to that. We'll still be out there doing community meetings in order to better understand what the residents feel that we need to do in that particular area. To me, this initial meeting is just part of due diligence. It's not something that we're obligated to do, but we're willing to do. So I wouldn't hold this as just the end beginning and end point here. This just started a process.
I don't know whether you have a March 5th deadline. That's a quick turn.
Well, that would require your staff and us working real close together to make that happen. It will have to happen next week in order for us to really pull it off.
Take time to mail that out.
Because our next council meeting would be the meeting before, what would that date be?
The
first
6th.
of-
The 6th.
It would be the
So it'd be
6th,
the
so
day
you wouldn't
after.
be able to get any feedback from us. So if the first Wednesday of the month is our council meeting,
Trust me, I got a lot of
Then-
feedback from you tonight
you
and
may
from your
not
staff.
have the answer you need
Well-
in order to proceed. Or maybe you do now.
I do now. Just based on the conversation here, I understand where most of the position is regarding this particular item, and that's what I go back and communicate to the county administrator and figure out what the decision will be moving forward.
And knowing that you have to have a supermajority is very
Absolutely.
important, yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Come back again, don't be a stranger.
I have to now. I see the little ladies coming up here in the orange blossom, but thank you for your time. I
we would
appreciate
love
it.
to host you. Come on out.
You know, I live in plantations,
If you come, you will enjoy it.
but thank you.
Thank you.
Our next presentation is from our Budget and Finance Director, Mr. Ackerman, on our first quarter financials.
Yay, I think. Just kidding.
What?
Just kidding.
He said, I think. He said, I think. Good news, I think. That's what he said.
Why is it
I
not-
committed you this morning, this afternoon.
You did. It's not opening up.
I always found that if it's really good news, Lamac likes to make the presentation.
No. All is good, all is good.
well.
All is good. It's not opening on here, but I have a backup.
Plus collections, we're ahead,
90%.
right? At least
Of course.
on the whole preamp.
I've paid my taxes.
Yes, and we thank you very much for that. Well, the good news is that this will be a short presentation, and that's because nothing crazy and exciting is going on. So that's good.
Thank you.
And Mayor, thank you for the this afternoon. You gave us everybody a good picture of the town of Davie, our fiscal condition, and like you said, everything is looking great, and we appreciate that. So the good news, this will be brief. So overall, right now, we are not planning on using any one-time revenue sources or general fund reserves to balance the operating budget for fiscal year 2019. So that is very good news. Also, as it relates to the hurricanes that we've had, Hurricane Irma, we're finally starting to see some money come in from Hurricane Irma. And Hurricane Matthew, which took place in 2016, of October 2016, we're finally starting to see some of that money come in as well. So on that aspect, that was some good news. All right, so just what you see in front of you is a snapshot of the general fund, our revenues. It's broken out between revenues, the original budget, the actual first quarter results, and the percentage that we received through the first quarter. Now, we did have a budget amendment in January of 2019, so that was after the first quarter, so this, what you see in front of you, does not include the budget amendment that just was passed in January. Overall, you can see we're at about 56% collection in the general fund. That's comparable to the last couple of years where we were at 57% and 56%. So overall, we're doing well. Ad valorem, our number one revenue source, we're at 88%. That's compared to 87% last year, so we're on pace to hit that for this upcoming year. The local utility and other taxes, that category has several different items in there. One of the items that we have in there is a local option gas tax. Right now, as of 12/31/18, we had only received one payment for the fiscal year. We're expecting to receive the 12 payments for the fiscal year. They're just a little slow this year, so we should be okay there. A significant amount we get in there is related to FP&L utility taxes. Through 12/31, we had only collected 2 payments on there, so that's why the category is also a little low for that as well, but we're expecting to hit that by the end of the fiscal year. This category also includes communication service taxes, which, as we know, is a declining revenue source for the town and for other municipalities. It's funny, if you go back in time, at one point, we were collecting $4.5 million for communication services taxes. We're down to a budget this year of $2.9 million. So over time, that's been coming down, and we count for that in the budget every year. We budget accordingly. Another revenue source in this category is business tax receipts, BTRs. We were at 97% through the first quarter of fiscal year 2019. That's good news. It's compared to 93% last year. It's expected to collect a lot of the money up front because we do bill at the very beginning of the fiscal year. And on a side note, before I leave this category, business tax receipts and communication services taxes are on the legislative review this year. So we'll keep an eye on that. Hopefully that revenue source continues for the town. Permits, fees, and assessments, we're at 53% through the first quarter of the fiscal year. That's expected to be on the higher level than the 25% because that includes our fire assessment fee in there. Through the first quarter of the fiscal year, we were at about 90% compared to 89% last year. So fire assessments are on target. This category also includes building permit fees as well as engineering permit fees. Building permit fees as of 12/31 were about 33%, so they were ahead of schedule. Engineering permit fees were a little behind at 11% as of 12/31/18. However, January was a very good month for both building and engineering permit fees, so both of those categories should meet or exceed budget for this year. Intergovernmental revenue, the two main categories in there is half-cent sales tax and state share revenue. Through the end of the first quarter, we were pretty close to capturing revenue in there. It was slightly on the lower side on some of those key revenues, but we'll keep an eye on them and monitor them throughout the rest of the year. Charge for services, fines and forfeitures has a variety of categories in there. We've got parks and recreation fees in there. We have Southwest Ranches, our contractual services with them for police and fire. We've got ambulance transport fees, court fines. We have a variety of items in that category. Overall, we're looking okay in there. There was one category related to our school resource officers, the agreement we have with the school board, or with the county, the school board. They took a little while to approve the contract we have with them, so as of 12/31/18, we had not received a penny from them yet, but subsequently, we have received payments, and they're pretty much up to date now, so that's good news. As it relates to miscellaneous and other category, within the miscellaneous side, that includes interest income, it includes temporary lease payments, concession revenues. We're looking pretty good at this point in that category. Within the other portion, we have stuff in there related to using reserves for building and engineering and general fund, some monies that we're going to be using for CIP. And so that's money received in previous years, and we're just using some of those reserves for this year, but that category overall is doing fine. On the expenditures, again, what you see in front of you is the categories of the expenditures. Then we have the original budget, the actual first quarter results, and what we've expended through the first quarter. Overall, all the departments are looking very good in the general fund. There are two departments that are over budget. First one is risk. They're at about 64%, but that's expected to be because we pay our premiums in the first quarter of the fiscal year, so it's not done quarterly. And also non-departmental includes our payment to the Community Redevelopment Agency for the tax increment financing that the town of Davie pays our Community Redevelopment Agency, and that was paid up in the first quarter as well. It was about $2.1 million. Overall personnel expenses, you can see we're at 21%, which is kind of where we expect to be at this point. We do have some vacancies in the general fund, but we also have some extra overtime because of those vacancies. But overall, our personnel services are doing well. Our operating side of things are looking fine as well. We're at 21% on the operating expenditures, below the 25% we expect to be at this point. Capital outlay and grants, not a whole lot of expenditures going through. Again, grants are dependent on the revenue that comes in. Debt service is on target, will be on target for the year. That's based on the actual debt schedules that we have. And other uses includes the payment we made to the CRA of $2.1 million. It also includes a transfer that we will do later in the fiscal year for about $4 million. That's going to be for our capital improvement projects. So that's going to be transferred into the capital projects fund later in the fiscal year. So really to summarize, we'll continue to do our monitoring. We've got one quarter down. We've got 3 quarters to go. A lot can still happen. We have one critical thing that we have to keep an eye on, and that is our current negotiations with our FOPA, General Employees Union Group. We're currently in negotiations right now. We don't have anything budgeted this year in the fiscal year 2019, so if we do come to a contract, we're going to have to probably do a budget amendment to incorporate that contract into the fiscal year 2019 budget. As I mentioned earlier on, there was a budget amendment that took place in January, and that will be incorporated into the budget as well, and that included the capital improvement plan that was amended as well. So overall, everything is looking okay after the first quarter, and if anybody has any questions, I'm here for it.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for your time, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you for being there today, too.
My pleasure.
Okay, we'll go on to the consent agenda. The applicant is requesting tabling to March 6, number 13, which is a contract extension.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, anybody have anything they need to pull from the consent agenda?
She's not here.
Okay.
She stepped out.
May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, go on to the public hearings. Number 18 is a code amendment. This is the first reading. Mr. Racing, would you read the ordinance by title, please?
Thank you, Mayor. An ordinance of the Town of Davie, Florida, repealing and replacing ordinance number 2018-16 and creating Chapter 2, Article 6, Section 173, Code of Ordinances entitled Level 2 Criminal History Record Screening for town employees whose employment is critical to security or public safety, for contracted personnel applying for or continuing in employment or appointment which are critical to security or public safety, providing for specificity, providing for conflict, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. The second reading will be on March 6th. If there's anybody who wishes to speak for or against this, you can come forward at this time. It's a public hearing. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Is any questions or discussion by council? Could I have a motion and a second? The roll call, please.
Councilmember Starkey?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hatton?
Yes.
Mayor Paul?
Yes.
Councilmember Koleka?
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Number 19 is a code amendment. Mr. Racing, would you read the ordinance by title?
Thank you, Mayor. An ordinance of the Town of Davie, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances to prohibit the use of expanded polystyrene containers and single-use carry-out plastic bags by creating Section 13-59, Single-Use Containers and Plastic Bags, within Article 3, Food and Retail Establishments of Chapter 13, Licenses and Business Regulations, providing for conflict, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
If there's anybody, and this is second reading will be March 6th. This is a public hearing. If there's anyone that wishes to speak for or against this, you can come forward at this time. Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any questions or, yes?
So when I was reading this ordinance, I was looking at a statute. The attorney might want to look at it. It's Title 29, Chapter 403, Section 7033. The state legislature put in around 2008 a state statute that said that until such time that the legislator adopts the recommendations of the department, which is the EPA, no local government agency, or state government agency may enact any rule, regulation, or ordinance regarding the use of disposition, sale, prohibition, restriction, or tax of any such auxiliary containers, wrappings, or disposable plastic bags.
Do we have an EPA?
And they never, no, it says until the state legislature adopts it, and they never did.
So,
Being facetious, right?
would you, we had discussed this, so,
Yes, we have. Two cities, Coral Gables and Gainesville, Florida, have already adopted this ordinance. The problem is we are not doing exactly what that statute prohibits us from doing. And there are some exemptions, but currently in the state legislature, there are some bills that would be pro single-use plastic bags. there's among the cities a growing movement because of the environmental degradation. Our fish, our wildlife, turtles, the plastic bags do not degrade. Several stores on their own, such as Whole Foods, Lucky's, Trader Joe's, already have converted to paper bags, which are biodegradable and much more environmentally friendly. As I said, those two important cities already have adopted this ordinance. There's been no effort by the state of Florida to override them at this point, and we believe that this is what the town of Davie should stand for.
Thank you. It was interesting at the State of the Town address this morning, I mentioned the ban on straws, and there was definitely a rousing applause and response to that. So I think most people are aware, and I've noticed, and I see in Publix, people, in some of in Winn-Dixie, some of the other grocery stores, more and more people are bringing in their own canvas bags or whatever type of bags they have, and are trying to be a little more proactive. And I just think I know the Environmental Board had been discussing this for quite some time, so I think it's the right thing for us to do. Susan?
Well, my only concern is in the cities that you did mention, they're both being sued. So, that court case is still pending, and to my knowledge, it hasn't been resolved yet. And as much as I may support the ban, and I practice what I preach as well, I'm concerned about the town taking on this at the moment when the only two cities in the state are still pending the outcome of the litigation. So, if we wait to see what the litigation is, the frustration is there's pending legislation now that will preempt us altogether from doing anything ever. So I'm concerned about it as well, believe me. I just don't want to look down the throat of another litigation and try to have to defend it later on.
Sometimes the difference. I know a couple of times we've looked at things and said, well, we won't do it because of litigation, but, every once in a while you kind of have to take a stand. And I think once before we said, if there's going to be litigation, there's going to be litigation, but this is what we feel is the right thing to do, and we'll go ahead with it. If I was not aware, did you know that Mr. Rayson, that there were those cases?
I don't think Gainesville's been sued. I'm unaware of that. But we all know that the legislature wants to destroy home rule. And we have constitutional power as well, granted by statute and the Florida Constitution. I agree with you, Mayor, that this is an important issue. I think this proposal's on the right side of the issue, and I think that our home rule and the challenges we constantly face from Tallahassee to our home rule are something that sometimes
this is not a legal opinion.
Up for. No, I know, but the truth is,
we should only give our legal opinion. That's what we value right now.
The legal opinion is.
We appreciate your feelings.
Our attorney.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But I think it has to do with home rule. Legally, we face a challenge. I acknowledge that. But I leave it in your capable hands to decide the direction on this.
Thank you. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, real quick.
One figure, I didn't know.
That means
yes.
1 minute, right?
Yes, 1 minute, 1 second. Mr. Rayson, I've been reading the last couple of days about how the local municipalities are trying to get ahead of the state for home rules. So they want to pass some of these ordinances because the state is going to try and take this stuff away from us. So if they pass it, if we pass this, and then they decide to rule against us, or they decide to and fight us, we can always take it back. I mean, we don't have to, if we don't want to, we can decide to fight it then or
Well,
not.
I think the question you're asking, if the state legislature passes something preempting, what then happens to ours? Is it
Right,
defunct?
yeah, that's kind of
Isn't
what,
that the
yeah,
question
kind of,
you're
well,
asking?
can you get
Yeah.
grandfathered in? Can they say those that have done it already, we're not going to fight them, but from this point forward,
No.
local municipalities
They
cannot
won't
do
that.
it?
Well,
I know they're not good at that.
let me make an analogy. Under federal law, marijuana is a Class 1 drug. You can't legalize it. You can't have medical marijuana. Yet throughout the United States, you see states passing legislation not only for medical marijuana, but some for recreational use. And the federal government, albeit against federal law, has not stopped them, has not prevented them. So, you're right. We certainly could be challenged. We certainly could. State law is more powerful and greater than local ordinance, without question.
Thank you.
But that's my legal opinion.
Brian?
Thank you. The problem I have is in the state statute that I cited, it specifically says containers, wrappings, or disposable plastic bags used by consumers to carry products from retail establishments. So there's something that was definitely identified there. There may or may not be litigation on this issue, but if there is, I want to know, is this council going to stand by it? And if we don't win, or even if we do, it's going to cost money. And that money's going to come from somewhere, and it may be a program that you may really like in the town. There are consequences for going against the state. And another thing is I'm not willing to rest my seat here with the current governor that we have, that if we knowingly go against a state statute, and it's being discussed right now, you may face consequences greater than you may think based on some of the current actions of this governor.
Take all our seats.
Mr. Raisin?
I will say that in the event that a new state law is passed that preempts all of this to the state, allows plastic bags, so on and so forth, that at that point, before there would be a lawsuit, I am certain we would have an opportunity to retreat from the position.
That's
Yeah.
kind of what I was saying.
I forgot what I was going to say.
Are we
Okay.
ready to fight it? That's what we were.
Yeah. Oh, it's again, it's one of these things. It's a David and Goliath. So
Damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
I know.
Yeah, but you
So
know who won that, right?
anything, huh?
You know who won that, right?
Yeah. Okay. So do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? I'll second it. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Lewis?
Yes.
Councilmember Koleka?
No.
Councilmember Hatton?
Yes.
Councilmember Starkey?
No.
Mayor Paul?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
And I would like further investigation from now until the second reading to be looked into as to the litigation and what were the grounds upon them suing.
Okay.
Again,
That's-
I'd like
that's-
further information.
That's reasonable.
I'll be happy
That's
with
Because
reasonable.
if there's
to that.
anything I would like to do, and that's always have a unanimous vote
that's-
up here,
that's the
but I'm
reason
not
we have two
comfortable at this
readings.
moment.
And that's a reasonable request. And I just think that every once in a while, you kind of have to stand up for,
At least tell them how we feel.
yeah, at least they'll know how we feel. Thank you. And this closes the public hearing portion of the meeting. Do we have any appointments? Anybody? No? Question?
Madam Clerk? Madam Clerk? Could you send me that list again of people that have been vetted already? No, the list isn't here. But the question is, the ones with the asterisks, those have already covered the people that have to be on the board.
The ones with the asterisk, those are the
That
types of
covers
vacancies
the
that you need.
Archaeologists, that's the ones we needed, that's the.
That's
disciplines.
correct.
Okay,
That's correct.
thank you.
Okay.
I submitted mine.
Yeah, your name was, you just still have agricultural environment, but you don't have
Right.
the other. We have no committee recommendations, old business, new business. You have your list of scheduled meetings, and when we come to comments, I thought I would start this time.
And I'll be right back.
I just want to thank all of staff for, that were at the chamber luncheon today to support me in giving the State of the Town address, and to thank Susan and Carol for being there as well. It's very interesting that after I gave the speech, so many people came up to me and said, you know, I'm a real estate agent, and I was trying to take notes because that stuff you gave was fabulous. I can use that to sell homes in Davie. And so she said, but I couldn't take the notes fast enough. I said, don't worry, send me an email, I'll give you a copy of the speech. We also had a number of people, somebody came up to me and said, gosh, I wish I lived in Davie. She said, everything sounds so wonderful. So we really appreciated, or I did anyway, the fabulous response that I got. I'd like to mention that we had on February 14th a commemorative ceremony in memory of those who lost their lives at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas last year, and to honor those the survivors, and even more than that, the first responders and those individuals who are suffering today from the memories and from the tragedy. So I want to thank Leona Henry for, Leona and Suzette. I worked on this. I did a beautiful job, a lot of detail and everything. And I want to also thank them. They did a fabulous job in putting together the PowerPoint that went with my speech today. And I had several people comment about that too, saying, my gosh, it was in perfect sync. Everything that you said, as soon as you said it, there was a picture there depicting it. And the comment was, your tech people that did that should be complimented. So Leona and Suzette worked on that, so I want to thank them very much. I mentioned before, I do, every once in a while on a Monday, I do a mayor's breakfast at 9 o'clock, and I change the venue. I will be doing a breakfast this coming Monday at the Flashback at 9 o'clock.
We have filet mignon?
What?
We have filet mignon.
So good. I don't know if I mentioned this before. Did I mention that NSU has an equestrian team?
Yes.
Yeah, I had a meeting with
cool.
I had a meeting with two of the officers the other day, and they came in and we were talking about, and I gave them the names, and they're going to try to follow through. Right now, they're riding horses that they kind of lease up in Tradewinds Park, and I said, you know, we have some barns here in Davie that perhaps you might want to contact. I gave them the names. It would be great to see you work out of, you know, a barn here in Davie. And I gave them specifically show barns that go to the shows, because that's what they're doing, they're showing. And I didn't know it. They were listing all the universities and colleges that have equestrian teams in Florida, and they all compete, and it's really absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to be working on trying to massage that and get them a little more involved. I don't know if they've contacted you yet, Jeff, but I gave them your number, and they're talking about trying to volunteer as a group to in some of the events that we're having in the town. So I'm looking forward to that. You know, we were mentioning before, and I didn't want to take the time from the presentation, but I basically, when people come to me to present a project, especially on the Flamingo Road corridor. I've kind of have this following scenario: no big box, no drive-throughs, no gas stations. I said, we right now, Flamingo Road, except for the one corner, is still pretty rural, and it looks nice. And I'm not, like I said to the gentleman this morning, we're not going to give way at all on the scenic corridor. And it was interesting because I was working on a possibility of putting a skating rink there, and we were working with the Panthers, and that didn't work out, but where they're going now. They're going to the War Memorial, so it meant they were serious about looking for a place to do something like that. But something that I would like to just mention in passing, that got 2 letters from the School Board of Broward County, Procurement and Warehousing Services, that both Nova High School and Western High School have their notice to proceed on their construction of their single point of entry. And so they were just informing, serves only as notification, and no further action is required. So I thought Western was doing a pretty good job on that, so I don't know what more is going to be done, but I just thought I'd let you know that, and the community know that that's going to be happening shortly. Brian?
No comments, Mayor.
Oh, okay. Marlon?
Thank you, Mayor. Last night I attended a meeting in Long Lake Ranches West, and we had Chief Dale Engel there and Officer Elliott and Rick Lamack, and they'd had some attempted break-ins, and we had a good meeting and a lot of good things that were said, and got a lot of good information out of that. And I want to thank all these gentlemen for coming out and speaking the time, and it was informative, and I think everybody left there happy. We have a really good police department. Everyone knows where our cars are at all times. So when people say, you don't patrol here, and we say, well, yes, we do, and you can show them, it changes things. And I think everyone was very impressed how, with just an attempted burglary, how our department here in Davie responded with the perimeter and K-9 and helicopters. And again, I want to thank Chief and Rick and Officer Elliott for coming out. It was really a good meeting. And I am looking forward to this weekend, and I hope I see everyone out there. And I'm going to mention one other thing, just information. I almost lost my buddy yesterday, my dog.
Oh, no.
Yeah, almost died. He's still not out of the woods, but I want to thank Dr. Lozier and her staff for how they've treated him. I did not know that Lidol, the synthetic sugar, is poison for a dog. And I left some out on a counter, and when I came home, he couldn't even walk. And I rushed him here to her clinic, and they really looked after him well, and she told me yesterday he had a 50-50 chance, but he's doing better. And I just wanted to tell people that. I had no idea that synthetic sugar was poisonous to a dog. And when I say poisonous, I mean this poor dog.
Terrible.
I had to carry him to put him in my truck to take him to the vet. He couldn't walk. He couldn't get up. So I think we escaped this. I think I got a little lucky, but I've mentioned that to other people today, and they said, I had no idea that stuff was poisonous. I have it at my house. And so just a caution, be careful. That's the same sweetener in bubble gum that can affect dogs, especially small dogs. And so just a word to the wise, and be careful. Thank you, Mayor.
I was just telling Marlon before that I heard of several instances where smaller dogs got a hold of, chewing gum, and chewed a couple of sticks of chewing gum and died. So it's really, really shame.
Chocolate's not good for dogs.
No, chocolate's not good for certain.
I had no idea.
That's
It's-
amazing.
Carol, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you. A few words, yes. Let me see. A few friends and myself, the mayor was there also, and we went to see the Act Theater play. Towards Zero was Agatha Christie. They did a great job. They worked very hard in that group. And the next show is in March, the 15th and 16th, only one weekend. It's an Irish play called The Weir. Tickets are now on sale. It's March 15th at 8 p.m. and the 16th at 2 in the afternoon at 8 p.m. So if you get a chance, you want to see some really good theater, you can come to it's down at the Pine Island Multipurpose Center. Strawberries are in. They were delivered today. All the women from the women's, not all the women, several women from the Women's Club were in and cutting them up and making them ready for the Strawberry Shortcake Festival this weekend. And they are beautiful. They came from Plant City. They're really fabulous strawberries. So if you get a chance, please come by and partake of our strawberry shortcakes, our strawberry shortcake with the works, which is ice cream. All kinds of great stuff we're going to have there at the Strawberry Festival. Mayor, you did a wonderful job today, as usual. It was really excellent to sit there and see the reaction of people whenever they said Davy, our staff was cheering the mayor on. In fact, even Mayor Ross said he was going to make us feel better by saying, hee-haw! That was his big thing at the luncheon, that I remembered. Anyway, it was great. It was very interesting, and it was the biggest luncheon the chamber has ever had, over 250 people, which is really wonderful. And the food was great. The entertainment was excellent from the Jazz Festival that's coming up on April 28th, which is going to be fantastic. I want to thank the CRA Police and Chief Engel. I've had a few times to call them about some people downtown, and some people that contacted me and said there were people downtown, and they sent CRA-trained people, went right out and took care of them. And sometimes they didn't want any help, but they were offered help. They were right there, and they were fantastic. And another instance was shopping carts and wheelchairs. I don't know where they came from. Underneath the Pine Island, the underpass, the overpass, whatever you call it, overpass, underpass. And they thought maybe a homeless group of people had left there. This lady shaking her. So I think they went right out the minute I called, and it was a holiday. It was Monday, because I thought, well, maybe we only have a skeleton crew. Who should I call? And I didn't want to really. So I bothered the chief, and he was very generous and gracious, and he said, send somebody right out, and they took care of that. So there's one other thing. Oh, and I just have one other thing. I'd like everybody to come out. I have a special vehicle that I will be being driven in for the Orange Blossom Parade. Please come out and see it. It's going to be spectacular. I'm very excited about it. No golf cart this year. People were teasing me last year about driving a golf cart, so I went out and I found myself this really fantastic piece of equipment. And actually, you men will know it's one of these men toys. You're going to love it. So come out and see me, and please come to the Orange Ball Festival this week, and you'll have a great time. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And I want to commend you for doing such an excellent job at the Davie Cooper City Luncheon. She really highlighted a lot of the wonderful things that the town of Davie and the town of Davie staff has been able to achieve, not only this year, but it's taken several years to get a lot of those things accomplished. And the many awards that our fire chief and police chiefs and many of the things that we've been able to achieve, and all the awards in budget and financing and a number of things that we have gotten. And recently the Sustainability Award, and I want to thank David and his staff for that as well. So it was a really good event, and thank you, Mayor. It's always proud to hear all the wonderful things that we do in and for our residents in the town. I also want to thank my colleagues for sending me to Washington last week in the bitter cold. It was raining, it was cold,
It was not on purpose.
and this southern girl who grew up in Miami was not quite used to getting a little bit shivery. However, as you know, Washington, most of the things that happen in Washington, you can pretty much access the House, the Senate, the Congress, and every place else underground. They've got a great transit system. So a lot of the things that we worked on was priorities of the Broward League of Cities, the Florida League of Cities, and as a Federal Action Strike Team member for the Florida League, we also adopt many of the town's initiatives. One of them is the deployment of a 5G, and what's been going on with being able to make sure that municipalities have a say in that. So we were speaking to several of our legislators, Congress rather, both Senate and House on these matters, and one particular, Congresswoman Ashew, who sponsored House Bill 530. It's called Accelerating Broadband Deployment by Empowering Local Communities Act of 2019. And that gives municipalities a say. So we were really grateful that she was advocating, and another part of this country, advocating for the municipalities to have a say where these particular 5G and et cetera are going to be deployed, that we get a say in it, and that was important. Our president, Leo Longworth, mayor from Bartow, was also leading the charge, as well as Cooper City Mayor was also there, Greg Ross, and there was the biggest group from the state of Florida. We had 45. Usually our task force only, or our FAST team only has about 20, 25. And there were 45 in attendance. There were several that are not members or appointed, but they wanted to come and have a say in what happens in Washington. I'd like to take credit that both the House and Senate were able to resolve the budget, and they both signed it, and the president signed it. But that was not me. I'm sadly say, but it did happen while I was up there, and there was a lot of relief on both sides that finally something's being done, that we can keep our government open. I've been up there when there was sequestration, and there were where basically you kick the ball down the road for another hearing and budget, but you at least fund it and keep it open for another 30, 60 days or so, but you never quite shut it down. So this was really good to finally come to somewhat of an agreement. One of the big issues that I know Deputy Town Manager Philip Holstay is always on is that National Flood Insurance Policy, NFIP. He's been watching this quite a bit for the past few years and informing us on what's going on. And it's due to expire May 31st this year. So we're asking that there be a permanent funding source for this issue, and also some of the other issues that were there for ADA requirements. And a lot of good things happened while we were up there, and positions. We were able to meet with most of Florida delegates, and I was really grateful that they all took the time out of their busy schedules to help us. Some of the other things, there's a lot of bills being proposed regarding CRAs. I forwarded them all also on to Phil and to Mr. Lamack for their review, and I come to find out they were already on it when I got back, so thank you very much for that. That's something we're all going to be having to watch quite a bit. Some other things is, on a happier note, there's going to be on March 2nd, Saturday, a walk for animals that's sponsored by Spirit Air from the Humane Society of Broward County. And join them at Huizenga Park and sponsor all the pets. And it also raises funds to help pets not be euthanized and for their adoption. And there were a few other things, but I think we're all good. Relay for Life's coming up. We'll talk about that later. Thank you.
Councilmember Starkey, this is something I think you'll be interested. I know you were away. I'm sure you've been on top of it. But I was following our legislative people sent down an email to us, and the governor has passed the budget, put out the budget, and in it is $7.8 million for human trafficking. So I've been passing that on to the Seroptimists and to all the groups that we work with that are working with human trafficking. Let's just hope it stays in and nothing happens. And he's also said that he will not raid. The first $75 million are going to go to the state, but after that, all the Sadowski funds is going to go where it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
So that's really
These are some big issues that we've been working on.
I just wanted to share it with the council.
For all of us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And something I forgot to mention also, on March 15th, along with some staff members, I'm going to be participating in the West Broward Leadership Program, and the clerk has said that she will put out a notice that there may be more than one elected official, so if anybody wants to attend it, Davy is in the afternoon from 1 to 4
Where?
at the JCC.
Oh, good.
Okay? Just so that you know. Mr. Lamack.
Mayor, I'm all set.
You're what?
He's all set, nothing.
Are you sure? Okay. Mr. Rayson?
Thank you,
I think
Mayor.
he gave up his minutes already.
He gave up his time.
I'm going to do three things before our next meeting. I'm going to talk to the attorneys for Gainesville and Coral Gables. And in the statute, which I had been familiar with, we discussed that before, there was a report due 9 years ago. I'm going to try and get a copy of that report. And the legislature, in the last sentence, did put in the language saying, until we act on the report, nobody can do anything. So I will get that for you. I will report back, and we'll see where we go.
Very good, thank you.
If you want the
There's no-
information
if
on
there's no
Gainesville,
objection?
I got it right here.
We're adjourned, thank you. See y'all at Orange Blossom.